This is Enough to Keep Going. This is our weekly podcast show. This is episode 39. 39 of them, gentlemen. Congratulations. So this is our topics discussion show. Every other week we alternate between our playlist and kind of doing a little more deep dive into what we've been playing. But this week is our topic show. So we are, again, whether it's a timely news topic that's spun out of some of our E2KG in 30, our Thursday podcast that wraps up the gaming news of the week in a nice 30-minute package, or if it is something that's been kind of niggling at us, kind of sticking in our craw, kind of giving us something that we kind of want to explore a little bit further. And so we've covered a lot of topics. It's also kind of a slow time for releases, other than Far Cry 4, and definitely some controversy there, potentially, depending on what sites and services you subscribe to. But I think what we're going to do is take a step back from kind of current gaming and talk about it as humans. We're going to talk about it as parents. We're going to, three of us here are fathers tonight. Well, we've been fathers every other night as well. But tonight we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about gaming from the perspective of parenting, from the perspective of gaming with our kids, and what that means, how we approach it, how maybe that's changed over the years as our kids have grown. I maybe would say matured, but I also have two teenage boys, and mature is a whole different topic there. So, but gentlemen, this is not just my turn to wax, poetic, because Agastocles finally let me back on the mic for hosting. But we are joined by Osiris Prime. How are you, sir?
Hello, everybody. I'm good. And I think that was Far Cry 5 you talking about. You said 4 before.
Oh, so yes, it is Far Cry 5, and I'll tell you why that I have Far Cry 4 on the brain. So I was just reading a really good article from US Gamer. It came out just this week, actually just today. They're kind of wrapping up the choices in the finales of Far Cry 3, 4, and 5, talking about kind of gamers' choice and some of the messages behind Far Cry in terms of humanity and where choices in terms of, just because we stick a gun in a player's hands doesn't mean they need to shoot it. So this is why I'm thinking about Far Cry 4. But, Prime, it's not just you and I. Swissguard, how are you, sir? You are back with us. How is your evening going?
It's pretty good. Last night, first Little League match, got thumped 7-1. But
finally playing Little League, Swiss. It's so exciting. Well, I'm so glad.
It's the first time I made the team.
You all grown up now.
Way to go! You're tall enough to play first base now.
But no, I'm good.
Oh, no, Prime is laughing, or he just got so. Oh, he's coming back with a baseball hat. Let's see what prop is Prime going to come back with. So, congratulations on the baseball and making the team. That's so exciting. We
Yes.
But so, is it your family? Is it your children that are playing? Are you coaching, or are you cheering from the stands?
I'm too ignorant to coach, so I am taking my son. My oldest son is doing it. So he went 1 for 2.
Nice.
That's pretty good.
Hey,
but
that he's doing it is a good thing.
Yeah, he's pretty much out in the outfield picking his nose most of the time. But hey.
So is this pitch or is this T-ball at this stage?
He's one stage above T-ball. They call it rookie ball here. So it's got a pitching machine.
Oh, nice. There we go. Excellent. Just in time for baseball season, right? So anyhow, that's a good segue to start talking about parenting and how we spend our time with our kids. So, but first, let's do a quick round robin here of what, other than parenting and the constant joys that brings into our lives, let's also talk about some other joy or struggles that we might have had this week in our gaming worlds. So, Prime, I think you've had some joy here coming up in the last week with your gaming world. Anything exciting you want to share with us?
Yeah, so I've been playing PUBG as usual, as you can actually see from my sign here. I actually won another round finally. It's been a few weeks, I think about 2 or 3 weeks since I've won a match in a squad of 4. So it was good. It was fun. I'll take it. Still chasing that solo win, but that's all right. I'll get that eventually, hopefully. But yeah, so I've been playing that. I actually just got that last night, and I had to share that out with you guys. So I was very excited because it's been a while, and I actually did pretty good too. I had 7 kills, so no deaths, obviously, since once you die, you're done for the round. So that was exciting. And then I've been playing a little bit of Mario Odyssey. I jumped back into that. I've been watching my son play. Speaking of family, last 2 or 3 weeks. So I just kind of got the itch. I was kind of looking for something to play. I wanted to play something different on the Switch, or not different, but something I hadn't played in a while. So I popped that in. And then I've been playing, or just past weekend over the Easter holiday, I was playing Charles Fusion with my son and my sisters because my family came over. So we had fun with that. I can maybe talk about a little bit more about that in a little bit here.
All right. So Swiss, other than running to and fro from baseball practice, what have you been? Have you had a chance to do a little bit of gaming this week?
I did somewhat. So I picked up Celeste, as you guys
oh yeah, that's right, for next week's gaming experience.
Right, last week you picked that for me, and
most of us.
Well, honestly, initially I did tell Prime. I said everyone in my family was disappointed that you guys picked Celeste, because the other games were the ones my kids wanted me to buy, and I think that there's been a change in attitude. So we've been having a lot of fun playing that.
Nice, that's good. Well, I can't wait to hear more about it, and you've kind of got me thinking I need to dive back into Celeste to prep for next week's show to be able to talk a little bit more about that game as well. So I have been playing one of the games that we didn't pick for you. So I'm about 4 hours into Ni no Kuni 2. I've been playing that, and I'll talk more about it next week. I find myself continuing to come back to it, and I have not been playing a whole lot of baseball since then in terms of MLB The Show. So I guess that's a sign. It's a really pretty game, but yeah, it's a really pretty game, and I don't know that there's a whole lot beyond it. But again, I'm only 4 hours in, so hopefully by next week, I haven't even gotten to the kingdom building stages yet, so we'll have a little bit more to talk about. I've also been playing.
Wait, can I stop you for a second? I'm sorry. Did you say you're only 4 hours in and you're not sure about it yet?
Yes. Well, because one of the big mechanics in this, we'll talk more about it next week, but one of the big mechanics is a kingdom building section. Like, you have to rebuild your kingdom. And so I haven't even gotten to that point yet, 4 hours in. So there's some meat on those bones, but there's a lot of gameplay mechanics. So we'll talk more about that next week. But anyhow, so the other game that I've been playing, or the games that I've been playing, is a couple weeks ago my son used some of his, Christmas money and purchased a Raspberry Pi. And so we've been working together the first week to kind of get it up and running. He's got a Retro Pi installed on it now. And so we've had a chance to, all the family's been kind of taking turns playing some classic games with it. Actually, just before I was getting on the podcast here, my wife and son were playing some Simpsons arcade game together on it. We've been playing some Turtles in Time. He's got some classic Mario Karts and Smash Brothers. Played some Defender. We've got Baseball Stars. Again, it's a wide open world, but it's been kind of a fun way to go back and play together, and not be the old man on the chair going, "Oh, I remember when I played this the first time," right? So I think that is a nice segue into our topic this week about how we spend time and play with our kids, right? That we do a weekly podcast here every Tuesday and every Thursday. So we are well invested in gaming as a hobby, gaming as part of something that we prioritize on a weekly basis, but we also prioritize our family. And so how do we balance those two? How do we, bring our family into our hobbies? And so let's talk a little bit about that as well. So not only have we been talking about what we've already been playing with our family, but but this is springtime, right? You were just talking about some holiday time with family, as some of us have spring break and kids with time off school. So there's a lot of potential and opportunity to play with our kids. So we all have kids, though, of somewhat different ages. And so I'm curious, Swiss, you were just talking about kind of the change in attitude of your kids in terms of Celeste. But, what do you look for when you are thinking about playing with your kids? Last week you were talking about Kirby and that was a good intro game. As you think about what games your kids are interested or what games you want your kids to be interested in, where does that fall, and what do you keep in mind as you think about how to frame games for your kids?
The short answer of what games I want them to be interested in are the games I'm interested in. But part of that's a selfish reason, but the other part of it's just I like to share my joys and what I remember when I was a kid playing games, and I like to share that with them. So, Zelda is a big one, and I was very pleased that my two oldest really took to Breath of the Wild, so that was good. But what I look for in a game, it doesn't necessarily have to be a multiplayer game. For me, we're all happy taking turns watching each other play a single player game. That's not as much of a consideration, although it is somewhat of one. For me, the primary consideration is pace. So, after content, but that's kind of a given. We can't have no Wolfenstein 2s with my kids. But the pace. So how much text is there to read? Am I going to be sitting there going through tutorial screens and two character NPCs talking to each other? Like that's no good. People will lose interest. How much action is there? Horizon Zero Dawn's at that kind of right at the edge of, okay, if I'm out there hunting dinosaurs, they know they're robots and that's cool. They like to watch me hunt the robot dinosaurs. Or just Celeste. They were pretty enamored just watching me try to get through the level and cheering me on and stuff. So mostly for me, can it keep their attention? Is it just fun to be able to interact with rooting people on and just have things happening. So, I think that pace one is really interesting. I hadn't really thought about that, but thinking back of like when my kids were first being introduced to or the opportunity to play some games, right? And that one of the reasons Mario Brothers or New Super Mario Brothers on the DS was such a attractive game to them is because that pace is kind of instant, right? It was right there. It's easy to pick up. There's some immediate interaction. Prime, you've been playing games with your kid for a while now, but you've also been playing things like Minecraft or Lego games. Do you find that immediate pace is something that he responds to, or does Minecraft change that dynamic a little bit?
Yeah, when I started out, he's 7 now, so this was a couple of years ago. When he was 5, he kind of, I was looking for something more that you can just jump into, and kind of like Swiss was saying, there wasn't a lot to read and stuff at that point. Just because I don't want to sit there and read a bunch of text and he'd get bored and just walk away or something. So like most kids would do. But yeah, Minecraft is I think it was kind of a no-brainer, I guess, at least for me, just because I can just throw him in there if he wanted just run around and explore. That was fine. Or if he wanted to build things, that was fine. He and that's helped him, I think, especially because we play on the Xbox 360, I think, at that point, and then now on Xbox One, a little bit on the Switch. Get used to the controls, because obviously it's the twin stick controls. I didn't have that when I was a kid. I just had NES and Super NES, and even before that the Atari 2600. It was just a stick with the one button, maybe two buttons, I think, later on. So it was a way for him to get used to the controller and how to control it. And sometimes we get a little. At first, I wasn't sure how he was going to react to that, just because obviously he's never used a controller before, and he seemed to jump on it pretty quick. He got used to it, and I play inverted all the time, but he plays the normal controls, and it's unnatural to me. All right, I don't know if we've ever talked about that, but I'm an inverted type of game player. But he was doing that, so sometimes I have to take control and do something for him, and I start freaking out, and I'm like, I start to kind of get aggravated. He's like, "What's wrong?" And stuff like that. But we've worked through it, but now that he's 7, I'm actually looking for games that there is a lot of text, and there is a lot of reading, because I wanna not only have him, obviously play the game, but, I hate to say this, but try to be a little educational and have him actually read the text, because he's at that age where he's, learned to read. He's reading, chapter books, as they call it now, actual story books. So, he actually read the text now, and, sometimes it surprises me, because I'm he's going through the screens and he's reading. I'm like, what are you reading? Because he's playing a game, and he's playing, he's reading the text off of Mario, or, not so much Minecraft, I guess, a little bit, just because they have like the little tags on everything. So you have to read to learn. This is iron, this is gold, and all that kind of stuff. But it's been interesting, seeing him evolve playing these games, and I just get just surprised every once in a while just how far he's come.
Yeah, it's talking about the reading. I mean, I remember when my son would be like, "Hey, Dad, read this for me," and I wouldn't want to sit there and read through, especially in a game like Dragon Quest Builders, which seems to have a lot of chatter. And like you said, you see them now, and he's going through it himself, and it's like, oh wow, something's clicking at least. So this is even beyond the gameplay. Using video games is just it's kind of neat to see your kids grow up, and I'm glad that Prime mentioned the controls, because it's like you give a little kid the control, and they pick it up pretty quickly, and before long they're pretty natural at it. You give that same control stick to my mom, and it's just like completely foreign. And the human mind is an amazing thing. That's all I'll add to that. So yeah, that's outside the realm of gaming. I mean, it's kind of in contextual gaming, but that's just like a parenthood joy to see your kid kind of grow.
Yeah, no, I'm smiling at you guys because I'm thinking about my own kids' experiences here. So, and you guys are softies. So my first son, or maybe here's the deal: I'm a softie because my first son couldn't play. I wouldn't let him play until he learned how to read. That we had a DS. I was playing Zelda, Phantom Hourglass, right? And it was also New Super Mario Brothers. This was in the prime of the DS, and he wanted to play, and I told him he couldn't until he learned how to read, and he caught on relatively quickly, and worked at reading, and it didn't take too long, and he was playing Zelda Phantom Hourglass, and then he realized that it still was not nearly as exciting as New Super Mario Brothers, but it opened kind of the door to him, and so I made him read before he could play, so that I didn't have to read the menus and the story to him. But then my second son, he got Mario Kart Wii for his 3rd birthday, so he's been motion controlling it, most of as far back as he can remember. And so again, that idea of controls and what seems intuitive and natural, compared to different generations that grew up with different control sticks. I think that same is probably true as people that have grown up with touch capabilities and playing Minecraft on a tablet for most of their young adult life, and then putting a DualShock in front of them or an Xbox controller in front of them and having them figure that out is another whole piece there as well. So Swiss, you talked a little bit, or you hinted at that idea of content, and so I know that for myself, it was, there was very intentional decisions when my children were younger about what I played or when I played it, what even I owned. And as they've grown, that has aged with them. But I can distinctly remember the first time that they played a T game, and that was new. It was Smash Brothers, and on the Wii. But so as you think about content for your kids, has that changed as they've grown older? Have you changed your approach to it? So I'm curious, because I'll circle back around here, because my approach certainly has changed over the years, but you brought the content piece up. So let's talk about that a little bit.
We tend not to, I don't want to say we don't worry about it, because we do. Like, mature games are pretty much, I mean, they are a no-go for my kids, and I obviously have mature games, and they've seen me kind of go into GameStop and purchase one, or, when I'm in there, but they're like, "What'd you get, Dad?" And I'm saying, "Oh, well, this is a game for Dad, so I'm going to play it after you're in bed." And they're like, "Okay." I said, "When you're older, you'll get to play it." So I don't really worry too much about whether it's teen or E. It's more just kind of like what the game is presents. So if it's overly violent in a kind of a gory way, or a really explicit, somebody harming another, like a human harming another human or something, there's probably not going to be something I'd allow the kids to play, or watch me play. Usually some of the more violent games, they don't even really play. I might permit them to watch me play. But if, there's a line there that, okay, this is a little too violent, I'm going to put it in my category of the dad category. They're not going to watch me. But if it's more like an arcadey violence, I'm trying to think what game would be teen, but is a little bit arcadey. I think that the Vanillaware game,
Dragon's Crown, or
no,
Odin's
that one
Sphere.
is probably on the no list because of the the costume design. But Odin's Sphere. So the costumes aren't nearly as explicit as in the Dragon's Crown game, and it's kind of a beat 'em up fantasy game, and they can understand it's make believe. Like Shadow of the Colossus is a good one. It's rated teen. I've actually let my children play Shadow of the Colossus, and it gets a little bit hairy, when they're actually fighting the monster, because when you stab it, like black stuff comes out, but they understand it's a monster, and it's kind of a fairy tale story. So there's that kind of give and take. I think has it evolved as they've gotten older? Well, yeah, I think there was a time I probably didn't even play anything that I would have remotely thought was too violent in front of them, and they were limited basically to the Marios and Kirby's of the world. But as the older kids have gotten a little older, I don't mind letting them do that. Just like, taking your kids to see a Star Wars movie. I mean, the originals I think were rated G or PG, if I'm not mistaken. As time goes on, they've gotten more violent, but those movies are open to 6 and 7 and 8-year-old kids. So it's just part of parenting, I think, to understand how mature your kids are. I will say that my 4-year-old has watched us play Shadow of the Colossus and likes watching it, but he gets a little scared towards the end. Like, so when you actually get to the monster and really start, it does kind of rattle him a little bit. Not enough to make him want to go away, or where we're like, "Oh man, you got to go in another room," and we don't want nightmares. But he wants to sit with somebody, and he only wants you to do it. So they even tried giving him the controller once, and he was like, "Nope, I'm not doing that. You fight the monster." But he understands it's a monster and it's a game. So it kind of you just got to kind of rate it with your kid.
What's your prime? I mean, your son's grown over the years as well, and you've been playing with him for a while. Have you changed your approach to content, or how did you start, and where are you at now?
Yeah, I think I've mentioned this a little bit in the past. Just kind of the difference of how we were when we were kids and when I was a kid. I think I'm a little bit older than you guys. Obviously, my parents, well, just in general, my parents didn't really care what we played and or watched. But as far as like playing stuff, I mean, obviously it was 8-bit, 16-bit, so it wasn't too bad. Even if it was like I'm not even sure if they even had a rating system back then, to be honest with you. But obviously there was kind of violent stuff. There's stuff like like Street Your Age and Final Fight, where it's kind of a beat 'em up. But like I said, my parents, it's kind of a different culture that I lived in with my Hispanic heritage. And I've seen this a lot with other kids, that I grew up with, and just other family members. They didn't really care too much. I shouldn't say they really care, but they cared, but they were there when when I was playing these games or watching movies or TV shows or whatever. That, well, maybe a little bit. I probably shouldn't have, but I'm out. But by doing that and growing up and seeing all this stuff and obviously how games have evolved, there's realistic graphics and stuff. I'm not letting my kid play everything and watch everything. Obviously, something like that. So he's not playing Call of Duty. He's not playing even Halo to some extent. Obviously, you fight aliens there, more or less. We just lost Swiss.
Yeah, so what age was your son when he played Halo? So my sons and I played the Master Chief Collection when it came out at Xbox One. So what was that, 2015?
Yeah.
Which probably would have meant my youngest was around 9, 10 at that stage. So, and that was probably the first time that he had played first-person shooter in that capacity.
Yeah, well, he hasn't played that yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't let him play that. Like I said, it's you fight aliens, but still, it's still, for me at least, it seems might be a little bit above where I want him to be right now. But like we play, obviously he plays Mario, we play a lot of Lego games, we play Marvel superheroes and the Lego Worlds and stuff like that. Those are probably E for everybody, I'm pretty sure. I think they are. I can't think of any that would be there. Yeah, after E, is it team then, or there's just something in the middle? Is there like E, and then there's like a number or something? There used to be an E10, but that's kind of gone away over the years. So. Okay. Yeah, because like even with like TV shows, this is jumping into a different genre, obviously subject, but I let him watch kind of 10ish. 10ish and below, so it's a little bit more mature, but still nothing that's not too violent or anything like that. So it's not that bad. I'm trying to think. I know when he's gone to like friends' houses, and like we've been out of town, he has friends that they were born around the same time, so he kind of keeps contact them, and they've played kind of more violent games, and it's like, okay, but we've talked about it, and I've talked to him about it, obviously, let him know, this is just a game, you don't want to, act this out, or do anything like that, and he understands that, so it's not... Sure, right. Did you go over to a friend's house to watch Predator, or some Porky's Revenge, or something that you shouldn't have watched at home? Yeah. So, I'm not going to be that, that person that's going to, just, nail down on like that. I understand that, I can remember when I was a kid, so, and I think some parents kind of forget that sometimes, that you are going to do that and sneak around and do stuff like that. Obviously, he's not going to do it all the time, so I'm fine with that. But yeah, for the most part, I keep it like E for everybody, I guess. Maybe a little bit. I have let him. I was messing around in Just Cause 3 one time. He was out playing with the kids, with his friends out in the neighborhood. He came in, and he saw me playing. The other kids went in for the night or the day or whatever. They went to lunch or whatever. And he saw me playing, and I was like, what? Yeah, here, you can play for a minute. And he was just like, racing around. Basically, he was just using the cars and racing around like that. He didn't know what to do at that point. This was probably like a year ago or so, a year and a half ago. So he was he didn't know what was going on. He was just playing in the world. So I let him do that for a little bit. I took control. So, just so where everything too extreme started to happen. But yeah, I pretty much try to keep it E for everybody for the most part. Yeah, I can see that. I think about my kids grew up during kind of the Wii era, and I didn't own a 360 and didn't own a PlayStation 3 until later, so it was a little easier to keep content a little more controlled. And then when we moved into the PlayStation 3 era, we still didn't. I didn't play a lot of, I guess Borderlands is probably the most mature game that I played at that stage, and they
It's only been recently, maybe a couple years ago, maybe 2 years ago, that they played some Borderlands with me, and that was kind of pushing the boundaries of content for two middle schoolers. But I think really, I mean, that's when my switch happened, is when my kids moved into middle school, and it kind of opened up, greatly opened up in terms of content, in terms of what they are, allowed or encouraged to play and talk about. Again, it's still not, we're not playing Wolfenstein, and other types, I guess I can't think of many others that go to that extreme. But my son has played Superhot. My son has played the South Park game. So in some ways, as they have grown, and now with one in high school and one in middle school, their content consumption has grown with them, and we've kind of talked about that. It's been a good kind of learning conversation and an opportunity for that, as you said, Swiss, right, the parenting aspect of that, of why some things, as that distinction, and why this might be fine to do here, but in real life, or how do other people perceive this, and we actually just had a conversation about that in the past month or so, as the media and the White House has been talking about games and violence again, and kind of talking about the studies around it and what the research says, and how they feel when they're playing, and what do other people think, what kind of games do their friends play. And so it's been kind of that social consumption aspect of it, of being aware not only of what they play, but what they're exposed to at friend's house, or conversations in the hallway at school as well. So Swiss, welcome back. I'm sorry your internet died, but yeah, I think as we kind of switch off the idea of what we look for, whether it's pacing, whether it's content, whether it's multiplayer, so that we've got some couch co-op going on, things to pass around. So as we think about those types of aspects of a game, I'd like to spend a little bit of time maybe talking about what games, at least maybe in the last year here, really stood out for you as good family gaming experiences, whether it's a whole family, or games that your kids have really dove into, or that you've enjoyed. I think more that you've enjoyed playing with them. So maybe recommendations out there for people who are in similar spots, with kids coming of age or being interested in gaming, and what's resonated in our households. So Swiss, since you dropped out and came back, so what, other than Kirby was a popular game last week for your kids, what else has been on their radar, in terms of things that they have been enjoying playing, but maybe also what they've been asking to play as well?
The biggest one, other than Kirby lately, has been Super Mario Odyssey. And I'm saying that from top to bottom. So I have kids that are, the oldest are 11 and 8, and then it goes all the way down to a newborn, or an infant, basically. So the younger kids really like Mario Odyssey. The older kids like playing it, but there is kind of a divide. So my older kids are really into Splatoon 2, and they like to play that a lot. They like to play what I play. So if they see me playing it, they're going to want to try it as well. So that's why I'm kind of careful of, what I play in front of them. So for the older set, the biggest one in the last year has been Breath of the Wild, which is odd that it's a single player experience, but my wife got into it, my older kids were into it, and I've always been a fan of Zelda. So we were literally having conversations about game strategy, while we're eating breakfast, or whatever. And so that's been one that's very much, I don't want to say united the family, but we could all share together, even though it's a single player experience. For a multiplayer experience, the last time that we all four, kind of like the four, my wife and my two older kids and I, have played, it was on the Wii U, actually, and it was Super Mario 3D Worlds. So we actually beat that together. We didn't want to kill each other too much towards the end. There was a lot of hey, pop my bubble, help me. And then, my wife and I would ignore them if we were actually trying to accomplish something. So that was a good one. But yeah, Mario Odyssey, like Mario and Kirby are big here, especially for my 4-year-old, because he can play them and he understands what he's doing when he's playing them. And I have a 2-year-old who likes watching everybody play, and it's very cute when she asks for the game because she doesn't articulate things well. So
you don't do that old trick where you give him like a controller that doesn't have any batteries or anything in it, do you?
Well, that's the problem nowadays. You give a kid, so I'm playing a PS4 and my 2-year-old will want to come and play. So I give her the PS3 controller and it's like,
there you go.
But she hits the buttons, but she hits the PlayStation button and it turns on the PS3. And then of course my thing auto activates and switches the screen. It's like, oh my God, why am I on the PS3 dash? And then, so that doesn't work anymore.
You gotta take the batteries out, that's all.
It doesn't have batteries. I guess I gotta drain the batteries.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. It's internal.
Yeah. So anyway, so the big Mario's and Zelda and Splatoon. So Nintendo is very very well represented.
Yeah, you bring up something that I wanna ask you guys about, because that idea of they want to play what we play. So my kids grew up playing a lot of Nintendo games and not necessarily other systems. And when I got an Xbox One, and as everybody that listens to this podcast at any point in time knows, that I'm a big Destiny fan, or at least was a big Destiny fan. So I played a ton of Destiny 1, and I actually encouraged my kids to try it out, right? Because they knew other kids who played first-person shooters, that they were kind of interested in that as a genre. And they both played it. They actually even played, I think they even played the beta back on PlayStation 3, and then played a little bit, but never really got into it, and still don't really click a whole lot with first-person shooters, mainly because they grew up playing on the Wii. And so they grew up playing third-person adventure games. They grew up playing, a variety of types of games that weren't necessarily FPS. It's only been recently with Overwatch that my younger son has really dove into first-person games. But I think that really shaped kind of what their expectations were for a game, because they spent a lot of time on Nintendo systems. So, Prime, you're obviously a big FPS player, or at least that has been one of your go-to genres for a while. Has that impacted your son's desire to try things, or have they been relatively relegated to Lego and Minecraft?
No, yeah, he every once in a while he'll ask if he can play Call of Duty, and I'm like, no, can't play that right now. And I don't know where that came from, because I never played it around him. Like, he knows that I had the game. Obviously, he's seen. This is back on 360. I had the cases because I was buying physical at that point. So he's seen them. He's seen the cases and stuff. And he's, when we were playing something, he'd see it on the screen. But I never actually played it around him. But he always just asked to it. So I don't know. He might have saw. Maybe he was at his friend's house or something, and he saw it. But that's really the only game I can think of right now that something I play that that I don't want him to play right now. Now, obviously, he'll want to play like Minecraft. He always asks to play Mario Kart. That's a big one too. He always wants to play Mario Kart. Sometimes he wants to play with me. Sometimes he doesn't, which is fine. Because unfortunately, he's got my rage gaming, so he gets really frustrated really quick. So he gets really frustrated in that game sometimes. No, although he's getting a lot better now, though. He's practiced a lot, so he's getting really good. But yeah, other than those, that's pretty much all he'll ask to play nowadays. And then as far as kind of playing, as a family, I can't even remember the last time all three of us played. Me, my wife, my son. I only have the one kid. It was probably we used to play a lot of Wii Sports, probably like a year and a half ago. Actually probably 2 years ago, because once I got the Wii U, I put that in my basement. That's where consoles go to die, basically, is in my basement. So I got my old Xbox in there. I had my 360 down there, so I'll probably put the Wii U down there at some point. But I still got it upstairs, because my wife does like to play Dr. Mario, so I have that through the Wii U that we play that. So But the one.
So you weren't even going to take like a cheap shot of where the Wii U went to die was the store shelves, or
Oh, no.
you know?
I actually still have it hooked up in my main TV here, so we still use it sometimes. Well, he has to play Mario. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Swiss.
I said we still have it hooked up on the main TV, and it still gets some love every now and then.
Yeah, I
That's
think
where I
again
played Mario
because of
Kart.
the age of our kids, it's still an attractive console for some of that.
Yeah, I
So,
never bought
Prime-
Mario Kart on my Switch, so that's where we got.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's right. You don't. So
Well,
what other
before you
types
say-
of games? Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say the one game I can remember all of us playing that we really had a really fun time was not Super Mario Maker. We would all make our own levels and then have each other play through them, and it was fun. It was really fun. As a matter of fact, we have to start doing that again because it was my son would just go nuts on that thing, putting things all over the place. But he finally got the hang of it after a while. That he can't just fill the screen with Goombas or flying Koopa Troopers or anything like that. So. But yeah, we really had fun doing that. And actually, I got that for my wife because she saw that just commercial or whatever.
So, Prime, are there other games that that you've enjoyed with your son? We've been talking about a number of them, but are there others, kind of some hidden gems that we haven't talked about, or that you guys have played and enjoyed that we want to kind of toss out there for listeners to think about picking up with their kids?
I'm trying to think. I don't think there's nothing really ever. Well, Rocket League. We play a lot of Rocket League. I think I mentioned that every so often. It's a really good game to just jump into and you can mess around. You can play with bots, so you don't have to play with people online, or you can just play locally. If you want to play against each other, that's fine, but you can play against bots. So a lot of times, I think we might have played against each other once, and that maybe once or twice, and that was it. But we usually want he wants to just play with me on the same team, so that's really fun. Let me think about that for a second. But other than the obvious, like any Lego games, those are always fun. But let me think about any hidden gems, because I don't know if there's anything out of the ordinary that we play.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm thinking about some other things that my sons and I have played, just in recent times that maybe aren't necessarily big name games. Last year we played a lot of Rivals of the Aether. So it's a Smash Brothers like game. It's on PC and also on Xbox One. It's more pixel art, but again, it's kind of a 4-player arena brawler, and so we picked up that, played a whole lot of that. We also played a whole lot of Towerfall Ascension, which again isn't necessarily a surprise that it's a multiplayer kind of couch competitive type of game. But it also, because it maybe is a little bit of 8-bit graphic violence in terms of a little bit squirt of blood, but it's also, it was very accessible and fun, going back to that pacing piece where it was quick to pick up and play, and we could play a couple rounds. So that's been a fun kind of multiplayer piece here. I think one of the other games, and I've talked about this before too, is Puyo Puyo Tetris on the Switch. That's been a huge family game for us over the last couple months. That my wife has gotten into it, my sons have been in and out of it at different times, and so there have been many nights when homework is done and we'll sit down around the TV together and play some Puyo Puyo Tetris and kind of laugh and rail at each other for somebody's throwing blocks over on the other person's side. And so again, some good games there that may not always strike on the AAA radar. So how about you, Swiss? Any things that your kids have really latched onto that surprised you?
I don't know if we have so much hidden gems. There's one game I did want to get. I got my oldest daughter. She's played a lot of Age of Empires 2 HD on Steam, and I don't quite remember why I wanted to get. I kind of wanted to get her in a strategy game, and here's like Prime said, trying to at least get some educational value out of it, but thinking at that level. You have to do resource management, so I explained all that to her, and eventually she just let her go, and she has a lot of fun. She doesn't play ruthlessly, but I think she just has a lot of fun building up her city and managing, and then building up an army and taking her time with it. So that's one that kind of surprised me.
Yeah, I could see like that Civilization, all those types of games that maybe they've, there's some type of context for them, but the pace is a little bit, depending on what challenge level they set it at, it's a little more variable as well.
Okay, so I remembered a couple now. Excuse me. So there's a couple. There's Roblox, which is on the PC, on Xbox. I'm not sure if it's on. I'm assuming it's on PS4, PS3. I'm not sure, but that's just. If for people that don't know, it's kind of a bunch of little basically kind of mini games, or some that are kind of well thought out. These are all user created games that. And I don't think you can actually create them on the consoles, but they're created on the PC, and they kind of just port them over. But there's some fun games on there that we found and we played through. And then the other one I just mentioned earlier was Trials Fusion, or any Trials game really. We have, he's actually been getting pretty good with that game, and it gets pretty hard, kind of quickly. So yeah, I'd say those two, definitely.
Great. Swiss, I cut you off a little bit there. Did you have any other games that have your kids have latched onto?
No, I was trying to think if there's anything that's not mainstream, but it's like the most well-designed games for. I mean, I'm kind of a Nintendo fanboy, but it's hard to pull them away from the heavy hitters from Nintendo. So.
Yeah, my kids, we're, again, big Nintendo fans, but we were pretty excited about the announcement that came about a new Sonic Racing Transformed game. So my kids and I played a lot of Sonic Racing Transformed on the PlayStation 3, and that was a game where, we loved that game, and in part because there were matches where there were races against each other, but there were also times like battles where all three of you would be on a team trying to take down a single opponent or different kind of objectives. And so, we'd alternate between working together to competing against each other. And this was, probably when my kids were, they were in elementary school. And so it was a good kind of a good game to play together there. So they're excited about that future one coming up.
This title is it's still Zelda. But it's, as far as Zeldas are concerned, it's one of the lesser Zeldas. Triforce Heroes. I did. We have two 3DSs, and I borrowed my brother-in-law's 3DS so that we could play it together. And it's a very different Zelda game. It is not your, normal Zelda. I think it was made by Capcom, to be honest with you. But that was also a good one. That's I don't think it's on the mainline radars of games, especially since to get the most fun out of it, you do need 3 people. Although it was a bit aggravating for me.
I was just going to ask if that ran into kind of the Mario Party or New Super Mario Brothers syndrome of, sabotaging each other as they played it.
We never got to the sabotage, but there was definitely a skill level gap that was difficult for me to. There were times when I was like, I might have. As a parent, you're always like, when your kid starts to get mad, you're like, I'm not gonna. Okay, turn it off. You're getting too angry. Sometimes you have to do that for yourself, and that was. I enjoyed it, but we could only play it in short bursts.
Yeah. So speaking of, go ahead. Yeah.
I was
fine,
say,
one more.
One last one, if you want like a really chill game, a little relaxing game. Farming Simulator. My son likes to play that too, so throw that one out there. He likes to play with the there's trucks and stuff, but then he's finally figured out. I was kind of helping him. Hey, once you get the corn or the wheat or whatever, you got to bring it into the silo and unload it and all that kind of stuff. So he started getting into a little bit more now.
All right, guys, we're kind of wrapping up our family segment here, but I want to turn it back to us just for a little moment here. Prime, Swiss, you said something at the end about taking time for yourself. So as we've grown into our roles as fathers and parents, how have you balanced gaming? Have you has that prioritization changed over the years? Have you now that we're able to play with our kids, does it change the way that you play your own game time? I know for myself, I picked up portable. One of the reasons I got into portable systems back with the GBA was that my wife and I were having children, and the portable system was a great way for me to still enjoy my hobby without having to be tied to a TV or being able to pause it and save it anywhere at the moments of a baby's cry. And over time with my kids, it's been Saturday mornings was, instead of Saturday morning cartoons, it was Saturday morning gaming. And, my gaming time kind of moved further and further into the evening. It's the after the kids go to bed time that I played games, and it really hasn't been until just recently, as my kids are middle school, high school, that I've been playing more during times when they're awake, because they're playing, and so we're either playing together or playing parallel, and and so that type has changed for me, kind of come back around until in that aspect. But for you guys, Swiss, you've definitely talked about some times when you've played with your kids, but when do you, or how do you make time for yourself as well?
Mostly there's just a lot less time. I mean, if you're a young a young person out there and kind of on the cusp of starting a family, yeah, you're going to lose your time. And it's not just gaming time. You're going to lose TV time. You're going to lose going out with your friends time. It is what it is. You're it's not a bad thing. It's just different. But for me, I can't play 80 hours of Final Fantasy X and then, a month later just start the game over again and play another 80 hours. It's just not going to work like that. So I tend to be able to play like daddy games, after the kids go to bed. So if you become a parent, routine's an important thing. So ideally the kids are always in bed by 8 o'clock. And I can have like an hour or two to do a little gaming. But for the most part, I don't watch TV. There's very rarely when I actually pick a show and watch a show, and I value gaming more, so I've let that slip. So, and in addition to just, if a game can be enjoyed by my whole family, my gaming time becomes my kids' gaming time. Yeah, I might not be able to play 100% of the time, but I'll get some of it in there, and it's fun to share with my kids. So certain games have evolved to be a family thing. Sometimes I got to compartmentalize it after they go to bed. And for the most part, I just got rid of stuff that was the less priority than gaming.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I mean, that idea of choosing where you spend your free time and what your entertainment mediums are makes a whole lot of sense. Prime, how about you? Has your gaming habits and patterns shifted over the years? What have you noticed?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same, like Swiss was saying, it's obviously gotten a lot less. And even when I was just me and my wife, I try not to game, like a whole lot. I would try to do it like after she went to bed, 'cause she goes to bed kind of early sometimes. So I would do it later at night. A lot of times, especially when CAG first started, I really didn't play with a lot of guys just because, everyone was playing at like 6, 7 o'clock, 6 p.m., but that was East Coast time, and over here it was, 5 or 6, so I'm not going to play that early. And that was just me. I wanted to do that. I didn't want to, I wanted to spend time with my wife, have that quality time. And then once we had the kid, kind of the same thing. Obviously when he was a baby, it was a little bit easier because, he's just kind of laying there. He can't really do much, but, once he got older, I was playing a little bit more, in the early evening, but then, I shifted once again to, once everybody went to sleep, once he went to sleep for sure, I didn't really want to game around him. Even now, I don't really like to game around him too much unless we're playing together. So, it's a lot of my gaming is, actually a lot of it's now, Friday and Saturday nights, I'll stay up for a few hours, 3-4 hours just playing games. And during the week, I don't really play too much, except now I have this, so it's a lot easier. So, if my wife wants to sit there and watch, a show that I might not necessarily care about, she can do that, and I'll just pop in, something on the Switch. So it's starting to shift back over now that I can play, a little bit more now that I have a Switch. It's funny because you're Swiss, you're mentioning you can't play 80, 90 hours or 100 hours of Final Fantasy. And I was thinking the same thing about Skyrim, but I was like, well, wait a minute, I can do Skyrim now. I can do it on here. So, Switch is, a great console for that. It can, flip it back over where I can play a little bit more. Obviously, I'm not playing that much, as I was when I was younger. But I'm getting a little bit more game time in now, so it's starting to turn around. And once my son gets older, probably when he gets into middle school, like your kids in high school, DB, we'll probably play a lot, together a lot more. So you just gotta. There's an ebb and flow. I mean, it's probably like that even when I was younger. Sometimes I just didn't want to play games anymore, so I turned to something else. So there's that. DB, how about you?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about, it's almost, I'm seeing the pendulum in my own kids as well, right? Like, when they were in elementary school, playing with their dad was super cool. And then even in middle school, it was still fun because, but now my high schooler, yeah, not so much to play with his dad. And, but there are times like when he'll come down and say, you want to play something together, right? And so then it becomes an intentional time to spend time together as father and son, or as father and daughter, or, it's great. I mean, that's a really nice piece where it becomes an active choice. So yeah, it has been really it's hard to say this without getting kind of too emotional about it, but it's been a really enjoyable part of our lives, and it's something that we've been able to share together, talk about, and as they've kind of delved further into, internet and YouTube and Let's Plays and things that I did not catch up with them on, or now as my middle school son plays tons of Fortnite, now I become the one kind of watching them and asking questions, where before they were the ones watching me and asking questions. So there is some interesting kind of shifts that continue to happen as our kids age. So Swiss, you had one more. You looked like you were going to say something else there before we head out.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about kind of getting misty-eyed about it, because we love gaming so much. It's great when your kids sharing that. But yeah, as far as finding time to play, I will say that we what Prime reminded me, the Switch is great. I had to go to a conference, and you can get a lot of great gaming time away from your family with a portable system like the Switch. So that's one good thing. But Agastocles, actually, there was a time when I gamed a lot less, and I've started to come back, and part of it was Agastocles, and he's like, dude, I want to play a game with you. We got together at 5 a.m. Eastern time, and we were able to play till 6:30 or 7 when our kids started to wake up. So if it's important, you'll find those times. So it's just it might not be conventional, but we found those times to enjoy our hobby together.
All right, so gentlemen, we are about kind of coming close to our hour time period here. So any last thoughts? Swiss, you've had some nice ones there. I think you're right. You will make time, for friends, right? Just like we would make time to go out and play a game of pool or catch a beer with a friend. That being able to catch up online is just as important and just as valid. So Prime, any last thoughts before we head out in kind of this reflective piece here of thinking about our families and ourselves and our hobbies?
Yeah, I guess just the one comment real quick that because you had mentioned it just now was, the YouTube and the Twitch and all that how that maybe has or hasn't factored into the gameplay, or how that's evolved, and that's like a whole other subject. I don't want to expand too much on it, but I was just kind of bringing that up too. That's my son watches, a bunch of not necessarily some Let's Plays, more kind of, he's gotten into even more like kind of machinima type things where it's like Minecraft. They're using the Minecraft, guys and graphics and stuff like that. And, obviously, kid friendly, but, just doing stuff like that. So that was just my other last comment.
Yeah, where gaming becomes more than just the game, that it becomes other entertainment, right? It's its own cross-media properties to some degree. So I think this has been a really... So for those of you listening and watching, this was a topic that we've been kind of hinting and talking about in terms of playing with our kids, but we've never really sat down and spent a whole episode talking about what it's like as a parent with with kids and playing through our hobbies and what those experiences are. So as you're watching this, please, post some comments, give us some feedback. What are your experiences? Does this ring true for how you play with your kids, or how you hope to, maybe? Or where have your experiences been different? We'd be really interested to engage with you out there, and to engage with some other parents and talk about what this is like, and how we can continue to learn from each other in that process too. And in the process, maybe make sure that we spend some time taking care of our own interests, and making sure that we have some downtime to relax and zone out and play for a while too. So gentlemen, this has been our Enough to Keep Going. This is episode 39. We made it in our hour mark. Thursday night, we've got our E2KG in 30, our gaming news roundup. And I want to say thank you guys. This has been a great conversation. I've really appreciated it. I know that gaming with my kids has been a big part of my gaming experience. And like you said, I think you both said this at one point in time in the last hour, right? That these are things that we care about and experiences that we cherished as kids. And it's been nice to share those types of memories and instill that within our own kids as well. So gentlemen, any final thoughts before we head out? All right. Yes, Swiss.
Don't be afraid to. Don't be afraid to lose gaming time, because it's worth it to hear your 4-year-old getting all excited when he's playing Kirby, or ask him to help you. When he asks you to help him and stuff. It's special. I like you said, I don't want to get too mushy about it, but no, it's been really great. So I'm glad we were able to have this conversation.
Yeah, me too. I think, but that holds true for any hobby, right? Like you started talking about playing baseball with your kids, right? Anything that we care about and are passionate about, and being able to share those experiences, whether it's certain movies or cooking together or hiking the outdoors, any type of hobby that you feel passionate about that you can also share with your family, suddenly just amplifies its enjoyment. So I think that I'm glad that gaming is one of those things in our lives, and hopefully we can continue to have some really great family experiences. So gentlemen, thank you again for making this night an enjoyable discussion, and I really hope that for those of you out there listening that it's been enjoyable as well. So for myself, DBQ Hams, Swissguard, and Osiris Prime, this has been Enough to Keep Going. And until next time, we hope to always give you enough. Good night.